Hey guys, tonight you walk again through Alexandria, but not toward banquet halls, not toward veiled gardens. Tonight, toward exile's gamble. The palace walls are not yours. The throne belongs to your brother. Ptolemy XIII, a boy king sharpened by guardians and generals. You are 21, banished, waiting by the Nile, crown slipping like sand through fingers. But rumor spreads. Julius Caesar, conqueror of Gaul, victor of civil war, has come to Egypt. Not for you, for grain, for gold, for debts unpaid. But he is here, and presence is chance. Mainstream histories mark this year, 48 BCE. They record a bold queen smuggled into Caesar's chambers. Some say she was wrapped in a carpet, others in a linen sack, unrolled at his feet like treasure or trap. A gesture too wild to be accident, yet scholars divide. Was it seduction, a queen unveiling herself in the glamour of desire, or desperation, a refugee staking her life on theater? Roman pens wrote her as temptress, Egyptian memory paints her as pharaoh, and still, the scrolls cannot agree. Fringe tales add darker dyes, that the linen was perfumed with blue lotus, so Caesar inhaled Egypt before he saw her face. That the slaves who carried her were blinded, their eyes veiled, so no tongue could describe how a queen became contraband. That Cleopatra rehearsed her smile in a mirror of polished bronze, until it curved sharp enough to cut Roman suspicion. You follow her into the chamber. The door closes. Caesar waits. Older, scarred, eyes like iron dragged across stone. He does not move, he studies, and silence stretches, so taut it could break with a whisper. This is no banquet, no music, no perfume of saffron, only two lives balanced in one room. One, ruler of armies. One, queen without throne. Was it love at first sight, or calculation dressed as intimacy? Historians still argue, but the veil here, so thin, you almost see through. The room does not stir, only the torchlight moves, climbing, shrinking, painting both faces in gold and shadow. Caesar sits, robes plain, sword near, lines carved into his skin like maps of old campaigns. He has seen Gaul burn. He has crossed Rubicon's waters, but he has not seen this. Cleopatra kneels, not as supplicant, but as storm contained. Her linen clings, her hair braided in the pattern of Isis, a queen disguised as myth. Historians note the silence. Plutarch writes that Caesar laughed, amused by her daring. Others deny. They say his face stayed stone, measuring her as he measured armies. Was it delight? Was it calculation? The record splinters. Fringe whispers claim stranger truths, that Cleopatra spoke first, not in Greek, not in Egyptian, but in Latin, a tongue she had studied in secret, so his surprise would be her victory. Others insist she said nothing at all, that she only lifted the cup of water by his bed and drank, as if to claim the right to survive in his presence. He studies her, eyes narrowed, not lust, not mercy. Something else. Recognition. He knows ambition when it walks into a room. Outside, the palace hums. Her brother's men whisper. The Nile waits. But in this chamber, the balance tilts. One Roman general, one exiled queen, and the weight of Egypt between them. Scholars debate endlessly. Was this gaze the birth of alliance, or the spark of desire? Did Caesar see a lover, or a partner in empire? Perhaps both, perhaps neither. The veil hangs low tonight, not of silk, not of smoke, but of possibility. And you stand within it, watching two powers measure each other, like predators circling, like stars aligning, like history deciding how it will be remembered. Before this night, Cleopatra was not queen, she was fugitive, banished from her throne by Ptolemy III, a brother in blood, an enemy in power. She wandered along the Nile's edge, her retinue thin, her chances thinner. Mainstream records speak of civil war, two siblings clawing for one throne, advisors, generals, priests, each chose a side. Cleopatra's banners lowered, her name scratched from temple walls. She was left with sand, silk, and schemes, Historians argue what kept her alive. Some say her cunning, some her beauty. Others whisper it was Egypt itself, too tangled in her blood to let her go. Fringe tales creep in, that she wandered shrines at midnight, leaving offerings of honey and blue lotus, asking Isis to guard her until chance returned. That she learned poisons from desert healers, distilling venom into oils, ready to slip survival into the veins of fate. That her exiles were not mere wanderings, but rehearsals, practices in silence, in patience, in the theater of return. And now, that return stands before her, wrapped in the form of Caesar. A man older, stranger, foreign as iron. But iron sharpens, and iron shields. To ally with him is to risk Egypt's pride. To refuse him is to risk Egypt itself. Scholars still quarrel. Did Cleopatra bend to necessity, or did she bend Rome to her will? Was exile her wound, or her weapon? You walk her corridors of memory. Sand still clings to her ankles. Shadows of defeat still linger on her skin. But here in this chamber, exile transforms. It becomes the stage and for her most dangerous role. The veil brushes your cheek. It is thinner now, closer, almost ready to part. Caesar walks Alexandria, a Roman among colonnades carved in Greek lines, casting Egyptian shadows. He carries Rome's certainty in his stride, but here, the air bends differently. The Nile breathes. Its waters expand like shoulders, barges heavy with grain drifting like temples afloat. Perfume of lotus, of cinnamon, threads the alleys. The city itself is an argument. Greek words, Egyptian prayers, Hebrew bargains, all woven under Cleopatra's crown. Mainstream histories tell of politics. Caesar needed grain to feed Rome's restless masses. Cleopatra needed Rome to steady her throne. The transaction seems simple. But nights in Alexandria were never simple. Fringe stories stain the parchment darker. That when Caesar first dined in her hall, torches were dipped in honeyed oil, so their flames burned sweeter than ordinary fire. That musicians played not Roman marches, but hymns tuned to the river, so his heartbeat fell into Nile's rhythm. That Cleopatra appeared veiled in gold gauze, and spoke first not of treaties, but of dreams, as though she could trade visions as easily as grain. Historians cannot agree. Some say Caesar was charmed, bewitched by silk and smoke. Others insist he remained cold, calculating as ever, using her only as pawn in a greater Roman game. Was he seduced, or was he strategist? The question bleeds through centuries. You walk the colonnade with them. Columns rise like guardians, the floor cool beneath your feet. The torches flicker and each shadow seems to bow. In this space, Rome meets Nile, not on battlefield, not on parchment, but on breath, on silence, on the soft pause before words. The veil is here again. It trembles between two empires. It waits to see whether desire or duty will cross first. The nights grow longer, not with music, not with banquets, but with whispers that do not end. Cleopatra and Caesar meet in hidden chambers, doors sealed, curtains drawn, servants dismissed, or stationed far enough that only shadows move. Mainstream histories record these nights as councils. Talk of war, talk of grain, talk of her brother's army massing outside Alexandria's walls. Strategy inked in low voices. But the scrolls blur at their edges. Was it politics, or something more dangerous? Something Rome would later call temptation? Fringe tales breathe louder here. That Cleopatra burned incense laced with blue lotus, so every plan was drawn through the haze of softened breath. That she wore a serpent-shaped bracelet, its head biting her wrist, so Caesar would be reminded. Every touch risked venom. That she spread maps across silk cushions and traced rivers not with reed stylus, but with her fingertip, line by line, kingdom by kingdom, until war itself seemed like intimacy. Historians remain divided. Some argue their alliance was necessity, a queen's survival bound to Rome's legions. Others paint it as romance, a forbidden spark between conqueror and exile. Both truths survive in ink. Neither is certain. You watch them in the lamplight. Her voice, measured, low, folds around his silence, his eyes, iron, unyielding, yet drawn to the curve of her gestures. Strategy or seduction, plan or performance. The veil does not answer. It only trembles, and the night listens as two rulers write history between breaths. Time passes. Not much survives of what they truly said. Only fragments. Only voices recorded by others. Men with pens sharp as daggers, each cutting in his own direction. Roman historians. They call her Meretrix Regina, the harlot queen. A woman who snared great men not with wisdom but with perfume and flesh. They write of her laughter as poison, her smile as spell. Egyptian records, softer, reverent. They call her Pharaoh, daughter of Isis, protector of Nile's bounty. They write of justice, of divine favor, of the queen who wore 2 crowns and spoke many tongues, and modern scholars, they wrestle between these voices. Some insist Rome lied, casting her as temptress to disguise their own fear. Others warn against romance, arguing she was clever, yes, but above all, survivor. Did she love Caesar, or did she love Egypt enough to use him? Fringe accounts rise like smoke between the cracks, that Cleopatra employed scribes to forge counter-histories, texts buried in jars, waiting to be found beneath desert sand. That she whispered her own version to priests, who inscribed it not in words but in ritual, songs, dances, incense trails, histories no Roman could erase. That Caesar himself ordered silence, lest Rome be forced to admit that a queen outplayed their general. You sit within this debate. Scrolls scatter around you, ink bleeding, letters warring. One voice calls her sorceress, another calls her goddess, a third calls her strategist. The veil thickens here, not fabric, not smoke, but words, layered, clashing, refusing to agree. And through them all, her shadow lingers, neither temptress nor saint. Something in between, something Rome could never name, without fearing itself. Months turn, whispers swell, and then a child. Cleopatra bears a son, his name Caesarion. Little Caesar, a name heavy enough to bend empires. Mainstream histories record the fact, but not the truth. Some say he was Caesar's heir, others insist impossible. Rome would never allow its general to leave a legacy in foreign soil. Historians argue still. Did Caesar acknowledge the boy? Or did he turn away, eyes fixed on Rome alone? Plutarch hints he knew. Suetonius denies it. The ink fights itself. Fringe tales bloom like lotus at dawn. That the birth was marked by omens, a star falling into Nile's water, flames dancing backward on temple altars. That Cleopatra wrapped the infant in purple cloth stolen from Roman standards, a prophecy woven into swaddle. That priests whispered the boy's cry bent the reeds, as if the river itself bowed. Caesarion's existence deepens the question. Was Cleopatra's bond with Caesar desire or strategy, a child as treaty, flesh as parchment inked in bloodline? You see her cradle him, her smile, calm, unreadable. Behind her, proof that history may be rewritten in a single body. The veil hovers here, thin, dangerous. For in this birth, love and politics blur so closely that even centuries cannot untangle them. Time turns again. Rome calls, and Caesar must answer. The city he left behind hungers. Grain from Egypt can feed its restless masses, but his presence is demanded elsewhere. Senate debates, civil wars brewing. His empire cannot wait. Cleopatra stands at the harbor. The Nile sighs. The Pharos lighthouse burns. Caesar's ships gather, sails swollen with foreign wind. Mainstream histories note the departure plainly. Caesar left Egypt. Cleopatra remained. The child, Caesarion, left in her arms. A line written in ink, but heavy with absence. Historians debate what followed. Did Caesar promise return? Did he whisper allegiance? Did he ever call Caesarion his son? Some scrolls hint yes. Others erase the thought completely. Rome feared the claim, for one child could split an empire. Fringe tales grow louder in the silence. that Cleopatra sent letters written in honey ink, folded into lotus petals, carried across the sea by trained birds, that Caesar answered once, a single tablet, scratched with the words, "Wait for me," that she poured wine each night into an empty cup, as if he still sat across her table. But the truth is missed. Ships fade, the harbor stills, and Cleopatra remains. Queen again, but alone. You walk with her through the palace halls. Every torch seems dimmer, every marble pillar colder. The music that once bound two voices is gone. Only silence lingers, like an aftertaste no banquet can wash away. The veil brushes your shoulder. It is heavier now, not promise, not passion, but absence. A silence sharper than words. Years pass. Rome fractures. Caesar is gone, assassinated beneath marble shadows, and the world tilts again. In the chaos, two names rise. Octavian, Antony, one cold as calculation, one fire wrapped in flesh. Cleopatra watches from Alexandria. She knows. Rome's hunger has not faded. Her throne still leans against empire's weight. And then, summons. Antony calls her to meet him in Tarsus. Not as exile, not as supplicant, but as queen. Mainstream histories immortalize the moment. Cleopatra sails upriver on a golden barge. Purple sails billow, silver oars beat time like drums. She reclines beneath canopy, dressed as Aphrodite, while boys dressed as Eros fan her with wings. Antony waits on shore, and the crowd gasps. Historians argue over detail. Was it truth, or theatre so lavish it became myth? Did Cleopatra step ashore as goddess, or as politician draped in costume? Fringe tales press further. That the river itself was perfumed, her servants pouring rose oil into the water, so the breeze carried scent miles ahead. That Antony claimed he heard music before he saw her. Flutes carried on wind as if the gods themselves announced her arrival. That her gaze, when it met his, was rehearsed in mirrors polished brighter than bronze, so his first sight was already prophecy. Antony laughs loud. He is soldier, not senator. He loves wine, he loves women, he loves spectacle. And Cleopatra offers all three at once. You stand at the river's edge. The oars cut silver arcs. The sails glow against sun. Antony steps forward, smile too wide, eyes already ensnared. The veil shimmers again. A new chapter, a new gamble. Love or politics or both. The river meeting ends, but the feasts begin. Cleopatra invites Antony into halls veiled with silk. Banquets not once, but many. Each night heavier, each table brighter, each silence sharper. Mainstream histories record extravagance. Gold plates, wine poured until dawn, pearls dissolved in vinegar. Drunk as proof that Egypt's wealth could drown Rome itself. Historians divide again. Were these true banquets, or stories spun later by Roman pens eager to mock? Pliny swears she wasted treasure. Plutarch half believes, half adores. The truth drifts like smoke. Fringe tales breathe deeper. That Antony was seated beneath veils strung with stars, so every glance upward made him believe he dined beneath heaven. That dancers carried mirrors polished to show only his reflection, so the night seemed shaped around him alone. That Cleopatra whispered to musicians to strike chords matching his laughter, so every sound of pleasure returned multiplied. Antony is not Caesar. He does not hide his hunger. He roars when amused. He drinks too deeply. He stares too long. And Cleopatra, she lets him. Or perhaps she feeds it. You sit among the couches. Figs burst with honey. Wine spills like blood. Every torch burns sweeter than it should. Rome whispers later, was Antony bewitched? Or was he willing, eager to be swallowed by silk and spice? Did Cleopatra conquer his heart, or only his appetite? The veil folds closer. Not cloth, not smoke, but perfume, wine, and shadows pressed too near. A night that feels like promise and warning, woven together. Centuries pass, but the arguments still burn. Roman pens call Antony fool. They say he traded discipline for desire, iron for incense, Rome for Egypt's queen. They write of weakness, of spell, of betrayal disguised as love. Yet other voices, softer, fewer, say different. They see strategy. Two rulers binding themselves not in passion, but in pact. Egypt's wealth, Rome's armies joined against Octavian's shadow. The debate fractures. Love? Politics? Or both braided so tight that even time cannot untangle them? Fringe tales add smoke to fire. That Antony wore Egyptian garb in secret, linen robes instead of armor, as if to become part of her world. That Cleopatra had coins struck showing them side by side, equal in size, equal in gaze. An image Rome tried to erase. That priests whispered their names together in temple prayers, binding them as gods, not mortals. You sit between scrolls. Ink bleeds. Letters clash. Each historian choosing weapon, mockery, praise, silence. But the night in Alexandria remembers differently. There were banquets, there were whispers, there was laughter that trembled like prophecy. And somewhere in the hall, the veil stirred, not choosing side, only reminding that history itself wears masks, and behind each mask another face waits. The nights do not end with banquets. They spill into mornings where gifts wait like echoes. Cleopatra does not send Antony away empty-handed. She floods him with Egypt, gold coins struck with her face, carpets woven with Nile's waves, perfumes pressed from lotus, amber sealed in glass. Ships filled with grain, sails swollen with promise. Mainstream histories note the exchange. They call it bribery. They call it spectacle. They call it weakness, a general bought by silk. But others wonder, was it generosity or investment? A queen securing loyalty not with treaties but with touchable wealth. Love given in the language of empire? Fringe tales scatter brighter gems. That she gifted him a dagger with obsidian blade, sharp enough to slice iron, but meant for ritual, not war. That she built him a pavilion by the river, lined with mirrors, so each sunrise he saw his body twice, once as man, once as legend. That she pressed amulets into his palm, inscribed with her cartouche, so even in Rome's camps. Egypt clung to his skin. Antony accepts all. He laughs. He drinks. He leans heavier into her shadow. Historians quarrel. Was he truly conquered by her gifts, or did he accept them knowing each coin was a chain? Some say he surrendered. Others insist he played his own game, using Egypt as pawn against Octavian. You see the gifts laid out. Gold burns in lamplight. Perfume curls into air. The river waits beyond pillars, dark, endless, and the veil hovers close, not cloth, not smoke, but the shimmer of exchange, love and power, pressed into one open hand. The gifts do not stay in Egypt. They sail north. They arrive in Rome as whispers. Senators murmur in marble halls. Antony, hero of battles, is now servant of a queen. They sneer. They sharpen their voices. They turn politics into rumor. Mainstream histories preserve the scandal. They say Antony dined on couches in Alexandria, dressed as Egyptian. They say he forgot Rome's laws, forgot Rome's gods, forgot Rome itself. Historians debate the weight of these words. Were they truth or propaganda sharpened by Octavian? Did Antony abandon Rome, or did Rome abandon him first? Fringe tales slither darker. That Octavian's agents spread stories of Cleopatra as witch, a mistress who bound generals with potions poured into wine. That Rome's streets echoed with plays mocking Antony, actors draped in linen, faces painted with kohl, parading through forums like caricature. That a secret Senate session debated whether to curse Cleopatra's name in the rites of the gods, as if her shadow stretched all the way to the Tiber. You hear the murmurs, not music, not laughter, only venom disguised as rumor. Rome is restless. Rome is afraid, for whispers are sharper than swords. Cleopatra remains in Alexandria, but her presence stalks Rome's marble. She is everywhere and nowhere, beloved, despised both. The veil trembles, not in Alexandria now, but in Rome itself. A curtain of words, drawn tight across the empire, and behind it, two lovers caught in shadows. The whispers harden, they sharpen into steel. Octavian does not laugh, he declares, he moves. Rome splits once more. On one side, Octavian, on the other, Antony bound to Cleopatra. Love or alliance now weaponized, now war. Mainstream histories etch the battles. Actium, 31 BCE. Ships clash on open sea, oars splinter, flames bloom, wind turns against Antony, against Egypt, against love itself. Historians argue the reason for defeat. Was it Antony's folly, drunk on desire, or Octavian's cunning starving the enemy fleet? Some say Cleopatra fled too soon, her sails retreating like broken promise. Others say Antony followed, choosing her eyes over victory. Fringe tales gnaw deeper, that Cleopatra signaled retreat with a torch raised high, a secret pact with Rome already in her grasp. That Antony fought blind, his heart louder than his ears, swords clashing only against shadows. That the sea itself betrayed them, waves dragging Egypt's ships away from glory, as if the gods had already chosen Rome. You stand upon the shore. The sky burns red. Ships vanish in smoke. And two names, Antony and Cleopatra, sink heavy into history. Rome claims triumph. Egypt trembles. The lovers return not in victory, but in ruin. The veil here is torn. Not fabric, not smoke, but destiny itself, split, bleeding, irreversible. And behind it, the last night waits. The palace grows silent. War is lost. Rome closes in. Antony sits alone, sword near, eyes dim. He hears rumor, Cleopatra dead. He falls upon his blade. Blood pools. But the rumor lies. She still lives. She calls for him. They meet once more. Two bodies broken. Two shadows clinging. Historians mark the end in fragments. Some say Antony died in her arms. Others insist he breathed last before reaching her. The scrolls do not agree. And then, her turn. Cleopatra prepares. Rome will not parade her through streets. She will not be chained. She will not bow. Mainstream records whisper of asp, a serpent smuggled in a basket of figs. Its bite, quick. Its poison, silent. Others doubt. A dagger. A cup of venom. A needle hidden in hair. Fringe tales linger darker. That she carried a vial around her neck for years, waiting for this moment. That priests of Isis gave her a ritual death, so she joined gods, not men. That Octavian himself lied, and her body vanished into secret tomb never found. You stand at the threshold. The queen reclines, linen soft, eyes half closed. She reaches for the veil, not cloth, not smoke, but the final curtain between history and myth. She lifts it, steps through, and the story becomes silence. The storm has passed. The flames are gone. Only quiet remains. You walk again through corridors, once loud with music, now hollow with memory. Shadows stretch, but they no longer threaten. They soften, like curtains swaying in gentle breeze. The Nile drifts, dark, endless, its waters folding over history. The Pharos lighthouse still burns far away, a single flame against night. But it feels small now, distant, like a dream. You breathe slower. The palace walls fade into mist. Whispers dissolve into silence. Cleopatra's gaze lingers. Not sharp, not heavy. Only calm. Only rest. You lie down within the story. Cushions of air beneath your head. The hall becomes a cradle. The night a blanket. Love or politics, desire or survival. The questions drift. They no longer matter. What remains is stillness. And stillness holds you. The veil falls one last time. Not to hide, but to soothe. Not to divide, but to cover. Soft, patient, like sleep itself. The story ends. Your dreams continue. Sweet dreams.